So if you've been around for a while, you probably remember at least one aviation downturn, maybe two, maybe three. Well, in fact, we could all probably figure out how long you've been in the industry in decades based on how many you've seen. This will be my third. And that's because they happen about once a decade or so, give or take. But in case you haven't noticed, we're in one again. And sure, it looks a lot different than downturns of years past. They all kind of look a little bit different, right? But for better or for worse, the big question right after you figure out what the heck you're going to do while things are down is how you're going to position yourself for when things go back up. And yes, as bleak as things often look, there will be an upside. We just never know exactly when or what it's going to look like. Now, I don't have a crystal ball. Nobody does. Not even the old guy with the expensive suit you saw on CNBC. I mean, sure, he sounds like he does, but he doesn't. The one thing that guy does have, though, is some pretty good market research to go off of. But that takes armies of people who make it their business to collect and analyze data, and we often don't get to see it, at least not raw. And if we did, I don't know that we'd really be able to interpret it ourselves anyway. But what if there's a really user-friendly place that you get industry news that covered things like ATC, dispatch, data analysis, aircraft design and interior engineering, IT, cybersecurity? And what if the source made a solid effort to connect different parts of the industry to each other in ways that weren't covered before? And what if this source made an effort to inform you about specific actionable things that could be done at all levels to raise the visibility of opportunities existing in aviation and aerospace for well-paid, challenging, and critical jobs? Jobs that can give Silicon Valley and others a run for their money. Cool stuff. Stuff that kids would want to do, like unmanned systems, advanced air mobility, aviation innovation incubators, commercial space, environmental issues, changing power plant technology, connected aircraft, and the list goes on. I mean, I'd read that. And I'd definitely do a podcast about it too. But that's just me. Don't go away. Welcome. This is Podcasting on a Plane. I'm Brandon Gonzalez, Tower Controller, CFI, former aircraft salesman, aviation podcaster, etc. And I'm broadcasting, as always, from the tower at mythical yet oh-so-real West Coast Delta. This is a podcast where we talk all about the backstories behind everything, pretty much, that we do in Airworld. Sometimes it's on the flying side, a lot of times it's on the ATC side, sometimes both. But today we're taking a really high view from an industry-wide standpoint of all that's done in aerospace. Or maybe better said, connecting the dots to try to find better opportunities for everybody. And while we're speaking about opportunities, it's because of you all listening, and particularly the patrons of this show, that I have the wonderful opportunity to make this content for you for free. And every once in a while, I think it's pretty important to name some names. Names of the biggest and newest supporters that make it all possible. People like Max Trescott, Captain Jeff from the Airline Pilot Guy Show, Paula and Vince, Brian Juarez, the photo mission pilot, Jeffrey Ola at Empower UAV, Ted Crossan, corporate pilot extraordinaire, Joe Godfrey, Jamie Ploon of the amazing Air Zoo, Thomas Qualwasser, Brooks Doro, and I'd also like to take a second to give a very belated yet very thankful welcome to Kyle. He's a new supporter on Patreon, and if you want to be like Kyle or any of the others I just mentioned, you could head over to podcastingonaplane.com and click on support. It's pretty easy. You can even just swipe up on your podcast player right now to reveal the show notes, and there's going to be a link right there to Patreon or buymeacoffee.com. But today, we've got Kathryn Creedy, and she has a huge track record in the past of identifying voids in aviation coverage and then moving in to fill them. She began her career in commuter and regional airline news to cover the intense activity of the post-deregulation regional airline industry. CR News became the Bible of the regional airline industry, and then she also developed and edited several aviation publications since then. She's covered aviation workforce issues since 2013 and continued to write extensively on workforce issues including diversity, work rule issues, aviation maintenance technicians, and pilots. Her bylines appeared in Forbes Online and CNN on these issues, and in numerous other publications, including Aviation for Women, Liam News and Analysis, Aviation for Girls, and Runway Girl Network. She's awesome, and she's a really big participator in our 21st Century Aviation Aerospace Communicators group on Facebook. And she's got a new product that those of you in industry won't want to miss. You ready to just hit the ground running and just get right into this? I feel like we're already into it, but we're not. But we are. So, well, cool. All right. Well, Kathryn, you are here because you have something that you would like to announce to everybody, wouldn't you?
Yes, I do. And that is the launching of a new aviation newsletter called Future Aviation Aerospace Workforce News. And the reason I did this is because there are so many things that go uncovered in the aviation industry. The aviation media really does take a 35,000 foot level. They talk about shortages or furloughs or whatever is going on in the big picture, as opposed to all of the efforts that are going on kind of roiling beneath the surface, such as the trends in education, the increase of career and technical education as a strategy to pay for college, apprenticeships and internships. And we need to question aviation education and bring it into the 21st century, because much of that training was forged in the 1950s and 60s, if not before that. So we have to keep questioning whether we're doing it smart enough, whether there are new techniques, and whether we can go to competency-based training. The other reason is that so many people are doing so many things on workforce development that it is really chaos to try and keep track of it all. So I'm trying to bring a comprehensive order out of this chaos now, and connecting the dots between these various efforts, letting people know about what is going on out there so they don't reinvent the wheel that is already successful for others. That's kind of why I decided to do it in the first place.
Yeah, sure. Well, for everybody who's not familiar with your work, and you've got quite a backlog of it, let's talk a little about where you came from, because obviously anybody listening can hear that you know what you're talking about. But where did Kathryn come from?
Well, I started my career back in the day, American Airlines Public Relations Office, but I quickly went to freelance writing in Chicago when I went out there as bureau chief for Traffic World magazine. And when I was recruited by Commuter Air magazine to come to Washington, I started my career in 1980 there. And then I launched a weekly newsletter to cover the post-deregulation regional airline industry, which had new aircraft, new airlines, new routes. They were taking on routes from the major carriers. So there was the wholesale transformation in the airline industry, which nobody was covering. And so I began Commuter Regional Airline News, and then created CR News International with a colleague, Allison Chambers, over in London, and then went back to freelancing. And I've had a smattering of PR jobs. I was with FAA Public Affairs for several years, and then I was Embraer Executive Jets recruited me down to Melbourne, Florida, to do their public relations. And when that assignment ended, I decided to stay because I'm 2 blocks from the beach and couldn't afford that if I went back to New England.
So now with this lovely view you have of the ocean, you're putting this together. And, we need to talk about, you already mentioned it briefly, but why does this publication need to happen right now?
Well, again, nobody is covering this section of the industry. No one is covering all the aviation aerospace promotion efforts in K through 12 education, nor are they covering diversity or recruiting and retention, all serious issues in the aviation and aerospace industry. Diversity, for instance, is one of our biggest social issues today, and how is that playing out in aviation? And or is it just playing out as, airlines or companies appointing chief diversity officers? What are organizations doing to really make aviation intentional when it comes to diversity, inclusive when it comes to getting all the voices at the table? One of the greatest hurdles we have is convincing coming generations that aviation and aerospace are not the old industrial complex that is now their reputation. But so we're competing with Silicon Valley, and we know that with advanced air mobility, with drones, with new engine energy and new techniques in air traffic management, that we can give Silicon Valley a run for their money any day. But we have to get that out there, and no one in the industry is developing the tools to say, hey, you should be thinking about an aviation maintenance career. It is not wrench turning. It is data analysis, and it is computer technology, and it is programming, and it is, all of these advanced technology techniques that belies the reputation that we have. So one thing I hear all the time from industry is the fact that we've done a very poor job raising the visibility of the opportunities existing in aviation and aerospace for well-paid, challenging, and critical jobs. We think commercial space, we think advanced air mobility, but that's about it. And there's new technology being introduced, new maintenance procedures being introduced, new disciplines being introduced every single day. For instance, we have a crying need for data analysis, and this is not even to mention cybersecurity. So all of that's high tech that should be, we should spread the word on, because this isn't just flying planes or fixing planes. This is about every single discipline that any company could have: legal, marketing, sales, communications, HR, operations, flight dispatch. I mean, it's just amazing, and nobody's putting it all together in a single venue, which I hope to do over time. I mean, it's just me, so it'll take time, but I'm working with people who can give me the tools necessary to develop the messages we need to get the word out.
Sure. Now, compare and contrast a little bit what it was like pre-COVID versus what you think this is going to change and how we're going to be different moving forward.
Well, nothing has changed with COVID as far as workforce shortages are concerned. Yes, we have a lot of furloughs. Yes, we have a lot of pain in the industry, and that is absolutely tragic, but it's something that we've seen before many times. Once a decade, we have a downturn. This one happens to be historic, but the shortages were always driven by retirements. And what COVID has done is accelerated retirements. So we, like Cohen Securities analyst Helene Becker said, we really are taking 5 years of retirements and condensing it down to a single year, 2020, 2021. And the airlines, her initial take on that was the airlines were going to juniorize their flight decks and give those approaching retirements a reason to think early retirement, because we are facing 3 to 4 years of disruption. Those retirements have been accelerated. So once the industry starts coming back, we're going to be facing shortages again. And on top of which is advanced air mobility and in commercial space, and all of these technologies have not stopped with COVID. We are having record numbers of launches. We are having record numbers of first flights and developments of urban air mobility and advanced air mobility. None of that has stopped. And those, and they're looking for workers now. And so the people who are being furloughed at airlines or in aviation, could find jobs over there and leveraging the skills they already have. So it's not the bleak picture that everybody assumes, because anybody who does any staffing work in aviation will tell you that people are still hiring. They're still looking for the type of talent that aviation and aerospace produces.
Well, it sounds to me then like on a number of fronts, the biggest issue really is a big misperception of the reality of something, be it the industry or hiring practices or what COVID's doing or so forth. But it almost seems like it's not so much that there are major problems, it's that the human nature of misperceiving what they are.
Absolutely. I think that there is a huge misperception on a lot of fronts on the types of jobs in the industry itself. But also there's a disconnect, I think, between those who are furloughing and those who need those same workers. At the very beginning of the pandemic, Aerospace Industries Association was on a panel, and they said, really, the best thing a company can do is work with other companies to find slots for the workers that they can't have right now. And that was probably the best piece of advice I'd heard since the beginning of the pandemic, because that would make those workers have a really good feeling about their separation from a company they're loyal to. And it would give them a, 3-point landing at a time when the industry is in real trouble and not hiring. Whether that has happened in the interim, I don't know. But certainly that's a way forward for HR, no matter whether we're in COVID or outside of COVID, to change HR practices to outsource for employees that are being furloughed to firms in the aviation aerospace industry, because otherwise we're going to lose these people to other industries that are not as impacted by the pandemic. And that loss will mean just more acute shortages in the future.
Okay. So what do you think needs to change then with the industry's perception now, as far as on the hiring side for companies, in order to really make that sort of plea known, the ones that need people actually, that you could come over here and work for us?
Well, I think that there needs to be a huge connect the dots between the different segments of the industry. And I don't know whether that is happening. So that's number one. But also, more importantly, there needs to be a perception change of the airline aviation industry from the get-go. When I was at a conference, a long time ago, 3 or 4 years ago, app developers were saying, airline app developers were saying that they need app developers. And that was holding up the development of creating really great customer service apps, such as you see with Starbucks. And so this is not a new phenomenon that we need, but we do need to connect the dots, the various types of industries, and where people are being furloughed. Those recruiters need to get in with those companies that are furloughing and saying, we need data scientists, we need data analysis, we need, whatever they need. That's something that could change. I know AIA, as I said, came up with this, suggestion at the beginning of the pandemic. Whether they have connected those dots, I don't know, but it would make a good story.
Even better than a good story, though, do you think that future Aviation Aerospace Workforce.com by Kathryn Creedy could be something that connects those dots?
Yeah, eventually. And what I'm working on right now are some of the biggest issues. It's going to be 6 articles a month, because they're all going to be bespoke articles. Nobody has covered these issues before. So this will be real actionable intelligence that the aviation industry can use on some of our most crushing issues. So, but I do want to get with all the associations and saying, how are you connecting the dots in the industry? For instance, there's a young man who just started a couple of years ago, a new Fly for the Culture, and he's tremendously talented, and it's all about getting persons of color into the flight deck or into the aviation field with camps and things like that. And yet, I don't think he's connected with Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals or Latina Latino Pilots Association or the National Gay Pilots Association, which all of whom are transitioning from pilots into aerospace associations. So, because they see the need across the board. But yes, I would eventually like to be a clearinghouse, but it would take a full-time job beyond what I'm doing now to get all those dots and connect them.
Sure. Okay. Well, then let's talk sort of about just the nuts and bolts of your newsletter. Then you said it'd be 6 articles a month, but what else is the newsletter about? What's it like?
Well, it's going to be, what I'm going to do is be posting articles, and if you sign up for the free trial subscription, you will get an alert when a new article is posted. I will also put it out on our Facebook page, Future Aviation Aerospace Workforce News on Facebook. I put them out on LinkedIn. Many of the association newsletters are beginning to cover them because they are new news. I mean, nobody else has covered these issues. So that's basically what I'm doing right now. So I'll have 4 more articles to do this month, and they will be on women and diversity and probably aviation education. I actually did one on aviation education and how unprepared we are on for training, especially aviation maintenance technicians, for the new technology in engines and advanced air mobility, et cetera, et cetera. And we're just starting to scratch the surface on researching what those skills gaps are and what is needed in the industry. A couple of professors out at Utah Valley University are doing that, and I just did a huge story on that, which is on our homepage. So that's kind of the high view of what we are. It's basically a website, and on the homepage, I paste 2 articles. 4 of the 6 articles are going to be paid content as of January 1, so you have to subscribe. But it's not going to be, somebody issues a news release and I cover it. I will post that on my Facebook, the FAAW News Facebook page, but I'm not going to cover it because so many people are already covering that. They don't need me to cover that. They need me to cover those issues that remain beneath the radar of most of the industry.
Sure. So the content that would just be delivered or via email then for the subscribers?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I have a list of about 600 or 700 people in the aviation industry who would be interested in this kind of news, and I will push it out via Constant Contact. But I also urge everybody to sign up for the free trial so that you won't miss any articles, especially those that are behind the paywall, which have the real intelligence that you can find nowhere else. If I think the subject of an article needs to be covered, I'll cover it. But if I think that all that I'm just aggregating information from a lot of sources, I won't put it behind a paywall. Only the bespoke articles of the issues that are not being covered will be behind the paywall.
Sure. Now let's talk value here. What's this going to cost somebody to subscribe to?
Well, it's going to be $300 a year for 6 articles a month, 4 of which are unique content and will address issues that are not addressed in the airline industry. So it gives industry a real path forward for adopting new programs or developing new programs that speak to workforce diversity, to workforce needs, changing education, what legislative issues are going to be needed in order to change. There's one right now on changing the aviation maintenance curriculum because FAA has failed to do that, despite a widespread agreement by industry that curriculum needs to be changed. I mean, they're still teaching doping, and what they should be teaching is composites. So it really hasn't kept up with the technology. So what I'm trying to do is create a give industry the information they need to really create these pathways for changing training, for changing the industry, for making a big difference beyond, a public relations difference.
Sure. Now, so this would be mostly like a B2B sort of publication, or would individuals benefit from subscribing as well?
I think individuals would benefit, but I see it as the target audience as airlines, aerospace companies, associations, legislators, government officials. Let's see, aerospace, I said, educators, especially the aviation maintenance schools, because and the pilot schools, because they are the linchpin of the next generation of those two areas that are most at critical risk right now.
Okay. Well, how could somebody get involved, perhaps, if they're interested in, would you accept submitted content, or do you need help producing it or anything like that if somebody was interested in aviation journalism?
Oh, absolutely. I would, I can't pay right now since I'm not making any money because I just launched. I can't pay anything now, but I am asking industry to contact me with their ideas on what needs to be covered. I have a laundry list of ideas on the website of what needs to be covered, but very few people ask the industry, ask the people on the line what they think needs to be covered. So that's what I'm doing, getting ideas from them. Also, if they have a program such as the Organization for Black Aerospace Professionals or the Latin Pilots Association or Women in Aviation, if they have a program, to let me know about that so that I can kind of create a list of connect the dots. We're all familiar with Women in Aviation International, less familiar with OBAP. The last month I've been doing a lot of research on who is out there doing these programs and what do they say is needed. We live in a unique era right now. This was not only the year of COVID, this was the year of Black Lives Matter. And to me, I have the same feeling I had in the 60s when I felt this time is different. Something is going to be done. And indeed it was. But we've slid back, and now I feel again, this time is different. Something is going to happen. And so we need to bring all of these folks in to say, here's what we're doing. If you want to create something in your community, come to us and we'll help you do it. And they're already doing that. All of these organizations. We had a great webinar with Ohio University yesterday on all the things that are being done. And there are lots of things going on out there, but we just need to connect the dots to let everybody know that their first stop on developing an aviation program in XYZ inner city community should be the Latin Pilots Association, the Organization of Black Aerospace Professionals, because they've already invented the wheel.
Right. Well, cool. I mean, it sounds like you are poised to make a really big difference in sort of filling in a lot of blanks and a lot of cross connections that, for some reason, have just sort of been overlooked.
Yeah. I hope so. I I did. When I started Commuter Regional Airline News, it was the only game in town on regionals, and I was able to call up, industry professionals who worked with me to teach me what I needed to know in order to cover the industry well. And I thank God for those people because they were all mentors to me. And I'm hoping that the industry will do the same for me here. I've been covering workforce issues since 2013, and the advent of the 1,500-hour rule, which caused a massive pilot shortage. So I'm very well versed in workforce issues, but as I said, I just started, this year I've started researching who is doing what and how can we connect those dots. And I've been thrilled at all of what I've learned and how many programs are out there. Now it's time to take all of that information and put it somewhere, and hopefully on my website.
And the website is?
It is Future Aviation Aerospace Workforce
All right. Kathryn, thank you so much for being here. This is wonderful. I can't wait to see where you go with it.
Yeah, I'm very excited about it. I'm really energized by it, and I think I hope to make a difference. And of course, you don't want to just do what everybody else is doing. You want to make a difference. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. I really appreciate it.
Pretty cool, huh? I'm always happy to be able to bring you people with that much industry experience, and I always want to hear what you think about it. So make sure to shoot me an email, brandon@podcastingonaplane.com, or better yet, you can use a smartphone or a SpeakPipe widget that pops up when you visit podcastingonaplane.com and record me something. Who knows, might even put it on the show. And while you're on the website, maybe consider supporting the show too. If you find value in it, I'd really appreciate having you on board as a patron. You get episodes early, and sometimes other fun stuff too. And if you're not into the recurring thing, that's cool too. You could head over to buymeacoffee.com/Bravo Golf spelled out and do a one-time thing in an increment of just $3. And if you want to stay sharp on the mic, make sure to use our affiliate code DELTA, as in West Coast Delta, at plainenglishsim.com. You can get 10% off the best smartphone-based ATC radio comm simulator around, and there's of course a link in the show notes for that too. And as always, I thank you so much for your support in whatever form it takes, and for listening to the show and passing the word along about this or any of your favorite aviation podcasts to a friend. Well, that's all for now. Your frequency change is approved until next time, and report back on this frequency for the next episode. Good day.
I'm Nick Herring from San Diego, California. The Podcasting on a Plane podcast is presented for entertainment purposes only. Brandon's comments and those of his guests, the website's content, and any social media, etc., are not a part of his official responsibility as a controller or as an FAA employee. The views and opinions you hear on the podcast are his and those of his guests, and not necessarily that of the FAA. There is no nexus between Podcasting on a Plane and the FAA. Also, while he is a CFI, he's not acting as your CFI, nor is he your mechanic, your doctor, your shrink, or your spouse. This podcast is presented for entertainment, camaraderie, and fun, but is in no way, shape, or form professional advice or legal counsel. If you are in need of professional advice, get some from somewhere more appropriate than a podcast, no matter how good this one may be.